definition of permaculture, because we're going to be talking a lot about permaculture, and it's a methodology that I want to put into your head as we start to present. So permaculture, it's something that is developed around ethics and principles. Some of those ethics are people care, earth care, and fair share. And when we get those ethics together, you can formulate a definition. And so that definition is that permaculture is a problem-solving design that mimics the patterns of nature to better utilize the resources that come your way. And so in short, permaculture is short for permanent culture. So as we go into the presentations, I want to introduce each presenter and their title. So my name is Jordan Garcia, and I'll be doing a designer's journey from consumer to producer. And then next, we have Joe Blanton, where he will talk about where is your watershed. Chevy Tang, she'll be discussing designing for catastrophe. Richard Daly is next, and he will be talking about from sky to soil, a key line design story. Deb DeCalza will be talking about using swales and berms. Deb Lucas, she'll be talking about aquaculture with chinampas. Simone Romhild will be talking about urban vermicomposting, worm farming on a tiny scale. And lastly, we have Ducey Delgado, and he will be talking about economic systems. And so as each presenter presents, they'll reintroduce themselves again. And lastly, I just want to do another announcement to just respectfully ask that you mute yourselves as we present, just so that we don't have any kind of feedback going on, so that the presenters can present. And with that being said, we will formally kick off our presentations. And so the beginning is myself. So I will go ahead and get started, and just to remind our presenters, I'll be the one doing the timekeeping. And so I'm going to spotlight myself for everyone, and then I will begin. All right. Let me pull myself up. Okay. So again, my name is Jordan Garcia, and I'm going to be talking to you today about a permaculture designer's journey from consumer to producer. And so I thought a lot about this because it's a big topic to talk about in 5 minutes, and it's even harder not to dive more into the topics that are going to be talked about in the workshop. And so I decided, I've been reading a lot of books lately on the mind, and so I decided I want to talk about this topic from a mindset perspective. So I say that in terms of shifting your mind to think as a producer. And to do that, I'm going to tell the story I'm going to show you two designs. One is from a consumer's mindset, which is our culture. And the second one is from a producer's mindset. And the designs are the same design. So this one right here, it's a simple design, but I want to show you what it's about. This one right here. So this is my home. And it's simple because I just want to tell you the problem that it has. And that problem is that we consume too much energy, and we consume too much food. Our grocery bill is too high. And additionally, we have flooding and compacted soil. And so with that, I want to show you what I'm doing as a design. And so I'm going to turn my camera off briefly so I can fix it. Then I come back on. Okay, perfect. So this right here is the design that I have. And so to tackle the energy bill and to tackle the grocery bill, I had to think with the producer's mindset. So we're going to start with the grocery bill. In my home, I have two places where we frequent the most, which is here and here. I've decided to put a vegetable garden bed here and another vegetable garden here. But additionally, because I have flooding here, I decided to avert the water to go throughout the landscape, and then I planted fruit trees. So with all of this,
I decided to plant heirloom vegetable seeds. So when I plant, I can keep the seeds and I can replant them again. And between those three things, I will reduce or eliminate my grocery bill. But for the energy bill, I decided to put skylights to make light come inside the house where there is none. And additionally, putting solar panels. Now they might not take me off the grid, but they're gonna significantly reduce my bill. And some of the cool things that I researched is I have a wood-fired oven here, but it's right behind my chimney. And so I wanna utilize the insulation from this wood-fired oven, and I wanna connect it to my chimney because the chimney's closed off, we can't use it. But during the winter, we use a lot of heat. So the heat is gonna go through this vent into my chimney, and I'm gonna put a fan here so that it blows all of the hot air through the house. And so between those three things, using a producer's mindset, we're going to eliminate our electric bill to, maybe not eliminate, but we're gonna reduce it, and we're gonna eliminate the grocery bill. And additionally, I have a greenhouse here, but it doesn't host plants. It houses wood so that I can have a whole year's worth of storage, so that I'm using wood in place of the heat, and also using it for my wood-fired oven so that I can bake my bread. And so this is but a taste of what you can use. And all of the presenters are going to go more in depth on these particular topics on how I came about all of these things. Additionally, we have chickens, and they're going to make me compost here. And so with that being said, I don't want to go too deeply into it, but you got to first invest in your mind to think in a producer's mindset. And I want to put resources in the chat to help you with that. But right now, I'm going to end my presentation. And again, my name is Jordan Garcia, and thank you for the time of listening. All right.
Okay, so yeah, thank you again. And next up, we have Joe Blanton. But I think.
And while he prepares his presentation, our participants have 1 minute to give Jordan feedback. They are documenting and recording their feedback as Joe prepares to get set up.
And just somebody clarify, are we sharing this verbally?
No, in your survey, from the survey link that you have.
Aha, I remember. Thank you.
I can't access the survey while Joe is sharing his screen. I don't know if this system is going to work.
You just hit escape on your keyboard, and it just reduces the screen size.
All right, are you ready, Joe?
Yes.
Okay, so whenever you're ready, I'll begin the time.
Hello, my name is Joe Blanton, and the title of my presentation is Where's Your Watershed? I chose this title to hopefully continue a dialogue after this presentation is over about where you live and the water that flows to and away from you. Water in its movement is directly related to the PC ethics and design principles. Water is a finite resource that undergoes constant recycling through the water cycle of evaporation, condensation, and precipitation. Water is very much aligned with the PC ethics. Protecting water is caring for the earth, collecting water is caring for people, and conserving water is making sure everyone has a fair share. The PC design principles allow us to ask many key questions about our relationship with water, the shared resource. Think about how you would answer the highlighted questions. How can we obtain a yield with less water? How can we conserve water to produce no waste? How can we use small and slow solutions to solve water flow challenges? How can we creatively use and respond to climate change in your watershed? Dictionaries define watershed in two facets: a ridge or other highland area that separates two distinct different river basins, and the total land area from which water drains into either a river or a lake. The take-home is that a watershed is both a ridge and a behavior of water called flow. Water must be shed down the slopes from highest places in the landmass called ridges. And water under the influence of gravity flows down the land as it changes elevation. An analogy to think about is this pitched roof of a dollhouse. Depending on which side of the house the water lands, it'll either shut off to the left or the right. Now I'd like to turn your attention to me in my classroom here in Houston, and I have a dollhouse with a slightly complicated roof. Here, it has two ridges. The first ridge, the water cascades right off of the roof. But as we get closer to the neighboring ridge, the waters combine into something roofers call a valley, exactly like we see in Mother Nature. These water flows in nature become streams, creeks, rivers flowing into natural lakes or dammed reservoirs for our drinking water, but ultimately end up in the oceans. So from the start at the highest ridge to the end of the lowest point, this area is defined as a watershed. Next, I have a hand-on activity that you can complete at home that only requires a few items: a crumpled ball of paper that's taped to a cardboard, some markers, and a water bottle. After crumpling up the bottle, the paper, you simply uncrumple it, but not completely. What you're doing is creating a relief map of a landform. You use the green marker to highlight the top elevation, the blue marker, the bottom elevation. Then you dot it with brown, representing different homes and businesses. Then you squirt the whole thing with water. At first, the green ink starts to flow down the slope. But then it comes into contact with the brown, the houses and businesses, and picks up that color as well. That represents the pollutants that we create, both in our homes and in our commercial life. So in summary, Where is your watershed? Your watershed is the area between the ridges that direct water to a common water feature, be it a neighborhood stream, creek, river, lake, or ocean. Why is this important to know?
All right, time.
Collecting and conserving water within your watershed aligns with the 3 permaculture ethics of earth care, people care, and fair share. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joe, for the presentation. The next one that's presenting is going to be Chevy, and while she's getting ready, we'll go ahead and do our written evaluations. Are you good to go, Chevy?
Sorry, my screen just kind of froze again. Just give me a second. Thank you.
Awesome, we can see it now.
Let me get it started. Just have to use the input screen. Okay, can you
Right,
see the
perfect.
screen now?
Yes. So whenever you're ready, I'll begin your time when you start speaking.
Got it. Thank you. Good morning. Have you experienced a disaster? My name is Chevy Tang. My topic today is design for catastrophe, and my focus will be on wildfire. You can see on this slide pictures of a drought, flood, a tornado, and remember the days of COVID-19. I'm gonna talk about my experience in Harvey. Now, Harvey happened in August of 2017. It was a perfect storm, and the flood of like once in a 500 years, and it's changed my life. I lost my house, my car, and family was moved to shelters. It was a terrible experience, but Harvey taught me many lessons. Let me share the ropes of preparing a disaster. So these are the pictures that happened in Harvey. The shelf was empty, people helping people. The first link that I'd like to share is the weather.gov, a great wealth of info on weather. And there are a lot of interactive links on it. Another great link is the drought.gov that shows you information and state information. So let's look at wildfire. Currently, there's a wildfire burning in Texas in the Panhandle area, burning more than 100 million acres. So the first permaculture principle I like to share is observe and interact. Designing a fire resilient farm and home. Is your home viable? Is it safe? What is the history of the area, the landform, the climate? Where's the watershed? Where's the water runoff? Is the water being slowed, spread, sunk, and stored? Let's look at the design from pattern to details. The direction of fire following the winds from north, northwest, west, and southwest. So building a vegetation screen, including native trees and shrubs, the deciduous trees, and even fruit trees, shrubs. A grapevine creates a great barrier for wind and fire as well. So for vegetable beds and also the horticulture, it's a great tool to have. So a picture is showing the distance from the house and the span of the tree tops. So catch and store energy, knowing that fire goes uphill. So having a pool of water is important. Cleaning the gutter, storing water. So a great link is the airnow.gov. It shows you an interactive location of where the fires are and air quality. So all you have to do is just enter the zip code or city or state. So on this link, there's a list of what to prepare for your fire season, during a fire, what to do. So very important information. So what is your plan for succession, a disaster plan? There's a lot of valuable resource in your community. Have you reached out? Permaculture offers solution to all ways of living with nature. This is some of the principles that we use. Thank you for your time.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much for presenting. Up next, we have Rich, and so you can go ahead and get ready in the pipeline, and the rest of us will do our evaluations. We will take 1 minute to do so. Okay, the 1 minute is up. Next up, we have Richard Daly. Whenever you're ready, I'll begin the time when you start talking.
All right, welcome all. Thank you for joining me. Appreciate you all giving me the time. My name is Rich Daly, and I, again, am thankful for you all being here. I'm here to tell a tale today, and I'm going to start this tale by prefacing it with a little poem. In landscapes vast where the waters roam, keyline design finds its home. Guiding droplets with gentle hand, efficiency spreads across the land. To maximize water's precious flow, and where it goes, carefully we know, enhancing soil, preventing strife, and every corner sustaining life. Erosion halted, fertility found, each inch of soil with life abound. Productivity thrives, a vibrance seen, in harmony with nature, evergreen. Regeneration, the noble goal, for years to come, a treasure to hold. Keyline design, a steward's creed. In its embrace, the land is freed. Now we move above to the expanse from where it all begins. The sky all the way down to where the flowers grow. The story is a story of water. In the vast domain of the atmosphere, where the clouds dance, moisture gathers. Through a perfect process coalescing, meeting their first nuclei, droplets form, and with a gentle whisper of the wind, these droplets embark on their descent toward the earth below. An intricate tapestry of nature's creation awaits, from rolling hills to meandering rivers, fields of abundance to cities full of impervious surfaces and trash. This dance of physics and poetry comes to life in the form of rain. As this tasteless but so refreshing combination of hydrogen and oxygen approaches the terrestrial realm, the descent quickens, the velocity increasing with every passing moment. And then with a soft dink, it lands upon the patient ground. A welcome guest in the grand plan of our beautiful, amazing, and giving Mother Earth. Here, on our one and only hospitable planet, the droplet finds its purpose fulfilled. It seeps into the soil, nourishing the land and the roots of trees, quenching the thirst of the land. In a world of takers, consumers, extractors, and pirates, we can observe and interact. We can be the artist, the giver, the regenerator, the hand that serves. We can be the one who gives back to she who has given so much to us. We can look at the land and look at Earth and her curves with opportunity in mind. There is abundance and we can harvest it. We can find a symbiosis with the very contours of Earth, her topography waiting for us to utilize, to craft, to bring about its full potential. Like a painter with their canvas, we can work with and design this topography with tender hands, and maybe some power equipment, to craft valleys and peaks in harmony with nature's beauty. To catch and store this water is to create true wealth. Thus one can create areas for water to sleep and slow its rate of absorption into the land. This is keyline design. By designing our landscapes with topography in mind, we can allow the land to drink, and drink some more. There is abundance and we can harvest it. We can store it, we can obtain a yield, and we can use it to create the world we want to see. We must use and value renewable resources which are offered to us with so much compassion and grace from our wonderful planet. Now, as we imagine and apply the power of keyline design, we witness the profound transformation of our landscapes, the opportunity to take once barren fields and transform them so that they teem with life and vitality. Here in this harmonious union of earth and water, we find not only sustenance, but also sanctuary. The sanctuary where biodiversity flourishes, where erosion and desertification are but a distant memory, and where the promise of abundance stretches as far as the eye can see. So let this story inspire you, to set you on a journey of discovery where the wisdom of keyline design beckons you to explore the boundless possibilities that lie within its embrace, and to reap the benefits of working with nature and learning from all her wisdom. For in unraveling these secrets, we unlock the potential to nurture and steward our precious earth with care and reverence. And in doing so, we become not mere observers, but active participants in the internal dance of creation and renewal. So thank you all very much for your time. Again, my name is Rich Daly, and I appreciate all the time you have given me.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much for presenting. Next up in the pipeline, we have Defta, and we'll go ahead and get our stuff going. Rich, I think you got that ASMR effect you were looking for last week during this long presentation. It was good.
Is it time?
Sorry, we have like 10 seconds, so I was writing, but just 10 more seconds and then we will begin.
All right.
Okay, you're good to go.
Good morning. My name is Dave Tecalsa, and today I'm sharing with you about the use of swales and berms in permaculture systems. Permaculture design follows a set of guiding principles. As we go along, I'm going to point out to you how the use of swales and berms respond to these principles. One of these principles is to catch and store energy as passively as possible. Swales and berms are a simple, even ancient, passive water collection and storage technique. In this illustration, we see a slope with a dip in it, which is the swale, and the mound on the downhill side of it is the berm. The way it functions is that sheet water from a rain event is running downslope through the landscape. When it encounters the swale, its momentum is interrupted. The water collects in the swale and is dammed by the berm. The water begins to slowly infiltrate, assisted by the tree roots, into the earth, which is the catchment medium. Once the earth is saturated, the water continues downward to regenerate the aquifer. Here we see the principle stacking functions. There are many purposes being served simultaneously. Of course, water catchment and storage. We're stopping the erosion and slowing the water flow. We can plant trees on the berm to start a food forest and promote plant diversity. This, in turn, creates wildlife habitat which promotes species diversity. It can act as a windbreak and a privacy screen. It can be planted for grazing livestock in and above the swale. As the soil stores water, it is sequestering carbon and lowering greenhouse gases. Now let's look at some examples of swales. They each serve a unique purpose, which is reflected in their design. Swales are mainly used with gently sloping landscapes. The principle, make the least change for the greatest effect, is seen here in that they aren't using dams or diversion pipes. They're not installing irrigation systems. They are using the natural resource of water and using soil to redirect it in a useful way. Small sites can be altered by using hand picks and shovels. The soil on the berm is loose, and after a couple good rains, you can begin planting trees, bushes, grasses. Here the principle is storing energy for later use, and this is what that can look like in the landscape. The original runoff pattern had the water escaping down the gullies bordering the fields. There was no water storage, and it wasn't held in the fields where it is needed. After introducing swales and collection ponds, the water was available for the crops and fields. As it spent more time in the landscape, it could infiltrate more deeply to recharge the aquifer. Over a long period of time, swales can collect and fill up with dust, silt, leaf mulch, and other organic materials, making them very fertile. This developing ecosystem hosts communities of microorganisms that colonize and decompose it. Swales have urban applications as well. They can collect and slowly infiltrate water that may otherwise cause flash flooding or release pollution into our creeks and rivers. Additionally, they can make a roadway more appealing and attractive, improving the neighborhood. In Ducey's neighborhood in Berkeley, an individual took it upon himself to initiate this project on public property. Now other neighbors in the area help steward this rain garden. It has brought people together, thereby encouraging community interaction. As you have seen, swales and berms are elements of permaculture earthworks that satisfy multiple guiding principles of design. We observe how nature behaves on the site and moderately adjust those patterns to create an outcome that will increase the yield we are seeking. Then we step back and enjoy witnessing nature evolve into a diverse and abundant working ecosystem of balance and wholeness, providing habitat for an increasing community of diverse species. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much. Next up, we have Deb, if you want to get ready, and then we will start the timer when you're ready after our 1 minute feedback time. And also, Deb, thank you for putting in that urban example for swales. We don't get a lot of those, so that was really cool to see. All right, Deb, so whenever you're ready to begin, I'll start your time when you start speaking.
Okay, I was just...
Yes.
Okay, it's working. Okay, I'm ready. Hi. Oops, except I didn't stop my timer. Okay. Hi, I'm Deb. I live at Frog Farm in Oregon, where we are experiencing our third atmospheric river of the season. In fact, it's kind of an atmospheric snowstorm ski slope at the moment. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about aquaculture, or how we can catch and use some of that water. What is aquaculture? It's basically farming in and around water. So that includes breeding, raising, and harvesting. There are many permaculture principles that apply to aquaculture, including integrate rather than segregate. So we're going to design with multiple elements. We're using and valuing renewable resources like the sun and water. We're valuing diversity, producing no waste. In fact, we're actually going to use some of the waste from the farm. We're catching and storing energy in the plants and in the water, and we're valuing the marginal lands and using edges. We will also be thinking about how many yields we can obtain. Here are some of the reasons why aquaculture is more productive than agriculture. First of all, fish can be raised on waste from the farm, like manure and insects. Nutrients in water are soluble and easy to assimilate. Fish are cold-blooded and their weight is supported by water, so more energy can go into their growth. Aquaculture yields high-quality protein, and water can be used as a resource in dry climates and assist drainage in wet climates. Ponds trap and store more solar radiation than fields do, and they moderate the temperature. So in winter, it's going to have a warming effect. In summer, it will have a cooling effect. Aquaculture can be set up on marginal lands. Next, we will consider the shape of the pond. In permaculture, we're always looking for increased edge for productivity. You can see this scheme has a very elaborate edge, yet it has compartments that share resources and feed each other. I'll give you a moment to absorb some of this. Trees are planted on the north side to take advantage of the reflected light from the sun, and that will make the trees grow faster. They also block the winds coming from the north and help to protect the water there. There's lots of different elements there for critters to hide in to protect smaller species from predator species. You don't need a large pond, though. You can do this in a yard. especially with recycled tubs and sinks. I've found a lot of bathtubs at the dump actually and brought them home. On the farm, we have animal waste that can feed the fish and us. So you can see how some of these wastes cycle through. And yields can vary depending on the type of water, fresh water and salt water, the temperature of the water, and the climate that you live in. In permaculture, there is a saying, the problem is the solution. So a lot of these problems, we can actually have a good plan and avoid these problems, but we might also need to have a recipe for raccoon stew or something else that pops up. In summary, consider the flows involved, the nutrients, the water, the air. Aeration is super important for a pond, so having airflow across the pond. The sources of water and nutrients, we want to monitor the pH and avoid pollutants. We want to build shelters in and around the pond and design complex edges. We want to reduce the cost by raising insects, and there are lots of different ways to do that, and plan for waste removal and flood. You could see in this sketch, there's actually a series of ponds, and this is another way to design it. So you've got brooder habitat, and then that's feeding the feeder fish and moving down to the large predatory fish at the end. Thank you very much. I hope you can consider aquaculture design. The design is key, and here are some resources. I'm happy to email you these resources if you would like them, or to keep in touch. Thank you.
All right, that's time. Thank you so much for that presentation. Next up, we have Jen. And as we do our feedback, I guess we could probably, all the resources that we have, maybe we could put it into the chat for some people so they can have it.
Great idea.
All right, I'm unmuted, so I'll just wait, Jordan, until you let me know it's time to go.
Okay, I'm just finishing up my review. We have about 10 more seconds, and I will give you the green light in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You're good.
Okay, well, good morning or afternoon, everybody, or evening. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Jennifer Powell, and I'm a permaculturist and the natural resources teacher at Al Kennedy High School here in Cottage Grove. And today I'm going to be talking about a decision that inevitably comes up anytime we're making a permaculture design. Do we add animals to our design? Do we keep animals or not? Oh. What the heck? Here we go. First, I want to launch into a story. It is a large-scale permaculture experiment that went on that I thought was really interesting. And it's called the Limburg, Belgium Chicken Giveaway. So the town of Limburg, Belgium decided that they were going to give 3 chickens each to about 2,000 households as an experiment to see if it would reduce the amount of organic waste that was going to the landfill. Well, after the chickens were dispersed, the organic waste to the landfill was cut in half. There were also low-cost eggs for people to keep and share with neighbors, and a lot of entertainment and fun for the chicken keepers. And so what that story tells us is that animals have a pretty big impact, both on the system that we're designing and on our lives. Now in permaculture, we design according to principles. And principle number 5 states, use and value renewable resources and services. Animals absolutely provide us with renewable resources and services, and so we need to consider how we're going to use and value those when thinking about adding them to our design. I have been thinking about adding ducks to my design at Al Kennedy High School. The renewables that are attractive to me would be eggs. For Brandy's cooking class, the kids would have fresh eggs. I could add the ducks' bedding to our compost pile, and that would help our green to brown ratio. Also, the ducks would provide a great service for slug control. We've got 80 raised beds in our garden, so we have a lot of slugs. And the ducks would also probably talk me into putting in that wildlife pond that I've been thinking about for so long. And then they'd be entertaining and fun. I think school would be a happier place to have some ducks running around in the garden. So now I need to weigh those renewables and services the ducks would provide against what they would require. Anytime we're thinking about adding animals into our system, we have to consider their requirements. First, animals take work. They need feeding, watering, and pen cleaning, and that has to be done consistently for the entire life of the animal. There are also diseases and pests. Animals do require health care. They can get sick and need vet visits and medicines, and they can attract pests such as flies, worms, and fleas that we're going to have to manage. And then there's their living spaces. Animals need shelter. They need spaces for foraging and grazing. They need protection from predators. So we need to make sure we have the space to provide those things for the animals. And then also their impacts on our land design. Animals have minds of their own, and they eat, scratch, dig, poop. And so it's important to figure out if we can utilize those services in ways that are going to help our design rather than destroy it. So with those considerations in mind, I'm thinking about adding ducks to AK. And here's the deal. Ducks need attention twice a day, probably 7 days a week. Now, usually I have weekends off, and I do like my weekends. Also, we would need to build a full enclosure to protect them from predators. We have overhead predators such as hawks, and so the ducks would need some kind of protection. And then the ducks also might eat some of the lettuce and other seedlings in the garden. So as I weigh these considerations, I think, I don't think I'm ready to commit to caring for ducks at school 7 days a week. I do like my weekends. And also, I don't know enough about how the ducks would impact our seedlings. I need to find out more about how ducks behave in gardens. So I need to figure out solutions to these concerns, I think. While I would value the resources and services that the ducks would provide, I don't think I'm ready to add them into my design just yet. So as you can see, animals make big impacts with the renewable resources and services that they bring into our permaculture design. Determining whether we value our animals enough to care for them properly and whether the resources and services they provide will be helpful is the key in making decisions on whether or not to keep animals. Thank you.
Spot on, right at 5 minutes.
Woo!
So next up, let me scroll up real quick. Next up we have Simone. So if you want to go ahead and get ready, and then we can do our evaluations. We'll only do 1 minute for that. Now, I like that you put the conclusion in, Jen, that you weren't ready to do it yet, because timing is everything. I remember I saw on a YouTube channel, there was a guy on a permapastures farm. Before he did it, he put chickens in his workplace, but then he realized his work was like 2 hours away, and he had to take care of the chickens every single day, and he was like, oh my goodness. So yeah, it's always, timing is definitely everything.
Yeah, it's a thing. I like camping in the summer too, so.
All right, Simone, so we got about 20 more seconds for everyone to write the feedback, and I'll let you know once it's done and whenever you start.
I'm ready.
Okay. All right, so whenever you're ready to begin, I'll start the time.
All right.
Hello, everybody. My name is Simone Romheld. I'm a permaculture maker and a Montessori teacher. And my goal today is to turn you into worm farmers with very simple tools. Three little buckets, some cork, a couple worms, and household waste. For simplicity, we're gonna jump over to our little paper maker space. So what is worm? Why would we want to keep worms? Well, keeping worms will enable us to turn our household scrap into valuable soil and fertilizer. It will keep the energy in the household. We wouldn't have to put it into the landfill. So we're kind of covering a couple of permadesign principles, which would be like to produce no waste. See? We catch and store the energy of the food that we've already bought or grown. We obtain a yield, which would be the soil and the fertilizers that come out of the worm farm, more or less the worm poop. We use and value renewable resources. We use very small and slow solutions. This is really for an under your sink worm farm. All right, let's get started. The first thing we need is just a bucket, and we will glue the corks into the bottom of the bucket. This is the outer bucket. It keeps the moisture and the water that sinks down contained so we can use it. On top of this bucket, we will put another bucket. It's a stacking system. The second bucket needs to have holes for the worms to be able to crawl through and for the water to be able to go into the first bucket. I made up this tiny little soldering iron. What you do is you heat it and you put holes into the bucket. As you see here. So what do we do now? We need to feed those little worms, right? In order to feed the worms, we use our household scraps. Our household scraps contain of two different types. We have green scraps and brown scraps. What does that mean? We have things from the garden that have grown in the garden that are left over. Would be like vegetables, fruit, apple cores, green leaves, lawn cuttings, things like that. But we also need brown foods, which would be coffee and tea coffee grounds and tea leaves, maybe old newspaper, eggshells, already leaves that have already turned brown, maybe mushrooms. We do not feed meat or anything cooked to the worms. So that is a big no-no. You do not want to put anything cooked or meat into the worm bed. So a good way to start your first empty bucket is to put some paper below, and then you start mixing in the greens. And this is kind of how it looks. You will have like scraps from the kitchen and a little bit of cardboard and paper. And then of course you need the superstar, which is the worm right here. You all see the worm? Worms taste with the whole body. So when you feed that worm some grapes, they're gonna have a very sensory experience, and they will repay you with the poop, which is the worm castings, which are perfect food for your plants. And you will collect water, which is liquid fertilizer for your plants. So thank you for your time, and I hope that all of you will start keeping worms in the future. I appreciate you.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Right on time, 5 minutes. Thank you for presenting on vermicomposting. It was very insightful. I learned a lot. Next up, and lastly, we have Ducey. So Ducey, go ahead and get ready. We'll take 1 minute to write our evaluations. After the minute, you're good to go. All right, you're good to go in 3, 2, 1. I'll start the timer whenever you're ready.
Hello everyone, my name is Papaya Ducey, and last but not least, and I think this flowed well, thank you Jordan for your first presentation from producer instead of consumer. And my presentation will explain our baseline material economic system and how it works. We all watch the news, at least before, once, plenty of times. In every news channel, they break it up into 6 different segments. You have international news, where they talk about things maybe happening in Gaza. You have national news, big highlighted news that's nationwide. And then we have our local news, which we see a lot of our city news, usually followed by our local sports team news. And entertainment. And everyone is familiar with the economics. We've seen this before. We may not pay attention to it, but this is the baseline of how we're doing as a nation. We follow the Dow Jones, the S&P 500, and the NASDAQ. And these are graphs. These are graphs on how we're doing. If we're doing well, the graphs are extremely high, and they're green, which means we're a strong economy, and we want to keep it from going red. If you guys are curious about what these represent, these are a conglomerate of American companies. In order for it to go green, it has to sell. And we want to keep this away from the red, which is very, very bad. So that means to keep it away from the red, all these companies here has to sell. Not just once a month, not just once a week, but every day. Walmart has to sell, H-E-B has to sell, Adidas has to sell, Nike has to sell. They even have people in line so that stock can go high. Apple also has to sell. They sell iPhones, laptops, everything in order for it to be green. But we wonder, where do these products come from when they're on our shelves? It's not how they just come out of nowhere. There goes through steps, which is the first step is extraction, usually on another part of the world. They're in forests. We need these materials for these iPhones, smartphones, which comes from cobalt, which are mined in Africa. And we also clothes that are produced in other parts of the regions, usually for low cost, usually done by children. And after these things are produced or extracted, they go to production. Sometimes they add these big factories in other parts of the world, not in America, but third world countries where the waste from the factories go into their systems. And it produces a lot of fumes during this production. And all goes to the earth. And after that goes distribution. So from these places, they're distributed on ships all the way to America, to our shelves, which comes with consumerism. which they have to push on us to sell these items. It becomes a culture, it becomes a way of life. Everyone buys a new car every year. They promote everything. But after we have a culture of going to the mall, consuming things, ordering things, those places go somewhere after use. Where do they go? Where do they go after disposal? You put them in your trash and you never see them again? That's what a lot of people believe. But these go somewhere. These go to landfills. These get, this is the Great Pacific Plastic Island, 3 times the size of Texas. These are the clothes from fast fashions that didn't make it to the distribution ship. Here is the material economic system: extraction, production, distribution, consumption, and we trash it, disposal. With extraction, with finite planet on a linear system, with finite places to put this waste, how is this a permanent culture? How can this last? It's impossible. This is not a permanent culture. So I want everyone to think about permaculture on a bigger scale. Is our system, which is now followed by other countries, the baseline of our economy, is this really a permanent culture? This Earth's been around 7 billion years. We have plenty of civilizations. But unfortunately, the system that we have in place is not permanent. Because eventually we'll run out of Earth. We'll run out of places to put things. Thank you guys for your time.
Well, thank you, DC. That was a really, really good presentation. Wish we could definitely have more time to go deeper into it. I want to thank everyone for presenting. We're going to take a break, but before we do, I'm going to pass it off to Defta so she can give some closing remarks. But thank you again.
And we hope you got something out of it, and maybe we're even inspired to find out more. And I want to thank the presenters. We all did research on topics that we were unfamiliar with, and then worked really hard to keep our presentations down to 5 minutes. And I know many of the presenters here are already teachers in some capacity, and may this help you to be even more effective leaders in sharing your expertise in making our world an even better place. I would especially really want to thank for all of us Jude and Carol, our instructors, guides, and mentors through this process. It's been enjoyable, intense for most of us, but we are grateful for your steadfast leadership. And with that, we close our presentation event. And once again, thank you to our guests.